Welcome to a video that is not spider grinding. So spider grinding is actually taking place a bit in the past because the episodes have not caught up to the present yet. And I was recording a rant, honestly, and it was going to be included in spider grinding, but there's really no point in taking up time in the episode with that and also posting it, 2 months after this event. So I'm going to record it separately and post it separately so that it can be posted close to the event. So this is the second Portal event in August, and this is the event that they've made some alterations to because they felt the first Portal event was too good. And the first thing you might notice is I'm doing a really weird tactic here where I'm flea bombing this Tritia pack. So I'm just engaging, killing a mob, fleeing, repeat ad nauseum. And the reason I'm doing that, well, I guess there's two reasons. So the first reason is I'm not strong enough to consistently kill the pack without fleeing. So if I kill Tritia round 1, which can happen, maybe 60% of the time I kill Tritia round 1, then the pack is fine. But if I don't kill Tritia round 1 and then I end up with 4 AP and poison, I'm gonna be in a rough spot. So this is the way to get consistent kills without dying. Obviously dying is bad because I lose gold, and because they nerfed the event, you don't get that much gold from the event. So this is where we're at. Now another reason why I'm doing it this way, instead of just doing easier packs, is because of the kill limit. So as you can see, you have a limit of 750 packs that you can kill, and then you can't do the event anymore. So there's no reason to do easy, fast packs, because that's a waste of your kill limit. You want to do the hardest, most rewarding packs you can, and for me that means I'm doing this. It's not super fun, it's very time consuming, but it is what it is. And that's what I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk about this, the whole event nerf in general, and what that means for the game, and what the devs are doing. Because I think, well, the problem that they're trying to address is a valid problem. This whole kill limit thing is not the right solution. So limiting us to 750 mob packs in order to let everybody get the same amount out of the weekend isn't really an effective solution. So if they're looking at people who are going to be busier during the weekend and have less time, this kill limit helps to an extent, right? Like obviously, if it means that someone can't no-life the event entirely and kill 20,000 things and get way more out of the event than you, that's in part a solution. However, in reality, the solution is not that good, because, like, as you can see here, I'm just doing a harder pack than I otherwise would, and I'm still going to be playing the event for quite a long time. So the stronger characters will just spend more time doing harder packs and still get more rewards than weaker players or players who have less time during the event. So that doesn't really change the imbalance between strong players and weak players that much, or players with more time or players with less time. And I think the ways to address those two issues are, for the case of people who don't have a lot of time on the weekends, make the event something like the anniversary event, where you have X number of tokens, right? Like the anniversary event is like 10 or 20 tokens or something, and that gives you entry into the event, and then when you use up all your tokens, it's over. And you can use those at any time. So don't have it just over a 3-day period. Have it over a whole week or even longer. Let people do the event when they have the time to do the event. Don't just limit people to one short period, because, people might be out camping or something, or maybe they have really long shifts during the weekend and they can't play at all, right? So this 750 kill count limit doesn't really help them in any way. The other thing they could do is have something like the weekly buffs. So right, when you take like the weekly combat buff, that lets you activate the buff at any time and it gives you this 2-day buff. They could do that with events, where you have an event buff, and you take the buff, and that gives you access to the event mobs for a 2 or 3 day period, whatever, and you can activate that at any time during a week. Right, and then that way, if you can no life from Wednesday to Friday, you can do that. You don't have to do it on Saturday, Sunday, or whatever. That would be another solution. And I think that would be more in line with how the game has traditionally done events, where the idea is, yeah, events are really good. You spend a lot of time in them. If you play 24/7 sometimes if you can, but they're short, but this way it would allow people who otherwise wouldn't, like if people who can't play on the weekends, to still have that experience. I don't think that would be a problem. But those do not address the issue of certain classes being worse at events than others, right? So, a fire mage is gonna solo things faster than a knight. That's just how it is in the game, right? Like, the way the classes are balanced, certain classes do more damage, and certain classes attack first, and that will give them advantages in speed clearing certain mobs. Additionally, obviously, like, weaker characters will struggle to kill things as quickly as stronger characters will. So yeah, stronger characters or characters of certain classes will get more out of the event. And to a certain extent, I think that's fine, like, especially with, like, stronger versus weaker characters. But regarding the class balance, I don't think the 750 kill limit really changes that either, because the strong fire mages will just finish the event faster than weaker classes, and then they can go farm other stuff, right? They're still getting more from their time than the other classes are, or the other characters are. Alternatively, they might just be able to do harder packs, right? Like, maybe in order for a knight to kill 750 packs during the event, they have to go down to Kemenak, whereas a strong fire mage could be doing the packs in Bairn. They're still going to get more rewards out of the event because they're killing harder things faster, and they're going to get more rewards from the harder content. So I really don't think the 750 limit is beneficial, or I don't think it's the best solution to the problem. And I think regarding the class balance, the better solution would be to have a mix of content that's viable solo and content that's really good for group play, and making that group play content rewarding. And I actually think they have that pretty well set up for this event. So the Selena packs, where it's Gregor Hawk and hard mode Selena, are actually really good for rewards. So they give 10 times the gold of these Tritia packs or something like that, per character. Right, so comparing solo Tritia to a 5-man of the Selena packs, it's like 10 times the gold, it's like 3 times the Psycho XP, it's much higher odds of getting a blue or a green, you're getting higher level reds as well. It's really quite rewarding, and if you're a druid or you're a knight and you're needed to run that content, you don't have to be the strongest druid or knight in the game, you just have to be able to survive and heal or protect, whatever. And then, a strong DPS will take you along. That works, right? They'll get a lot out of that content. And then if you're a weaker DPS or something, you can solo these, still get good rewards, even if you can't do those hard Selena packs. It works out for all the classes. Another good thing is, if you can't get in one of those groups, even if you're a knight or a druid or something, you can go and go farm stuff in Kemenak and farm it really quickly. It get decent rewards from that still. You can't do that right now because they have the mob limit. So if you can't find a group, it feels really bad to go waste your kill count limit on easy mobs. So druids and knights are really just stuck suffering on hard mobs or waiting around hoping that a party comes on that they can join. The kill count limit, it's not a good solution. There are better solutions out there. I wish they didn't do that. Now, let's talk a little more about the nerf and why they nerfed the event. So, in the previous Portal event, you got way more rewards. So, even if you ignore the fact that they introduced this kill count limit, they also had better drops in the previous event, specifically for reds. So, in the previous event, you would do the Frozen Lake packs. It would take me, 1 or 2 rounds to kill a pack, and you would very often get a 90 or 100 reds. So it dropped 90 or 100 reds, and the drop rate was pretty good. Maybe like 1 in 3 to 1 in 5, somewhere in that range. Quite nice. Now, doing these packs, it takes, I don't know, four times as long, something like that. The drop rate is much worse. So it's probably maybe 1 in 20 drops of red. And the reds that it drops are 80s or 90s instead of 90s or 100s. So everything is just nerfed into the dirt. You're probably getting, 5 to 8 times less shards from the event. Maybe even more if you count the kill count limit. At most, you're probably getting like 5,000 shards out of this event, whereas the top players in the previous event were getting like 60,000. I got like 20,000. Like the hardcore players here were getting 20, 30,000. And the devs thought that was too much. They thought that was way too good of an event, and it needed to be nerfed into the ground. Getting more than 5,000 shards in an event is absurd, according to them, I guess. But they actually came out and said that the expectation is it should take somewhere around 1,500 hours to get enough shards to gold 3 one item. So 1,500 hours, 1,500 hours per item for gold 3. That means for 12 items, that's about 18,000 shards. And for more than that, if you're a support or you're a debuffer and you have solo swaps, DPS swaps, or if you maybe you have a low durability item right now, you encrust it up because you want those gains right now, and then later you replace it with high durability, you're going to be encrusting more than 12 items. So maybe you're looking at 25,000 hours. It's a little absurd, honestly. Like, even 1,500 hours, most MMOs, your character will be effectively maxed in 1,500 hours. And I don't know why the devs want the grind to be this long. I'm baffled. It's absurd. Like, how many players are actually going to play that long? The only people who will actually have gold 3 gear, realistically, are going to be people who spend money on it. And, I get it. They want to have whales spending a lot of money on the game, but they already had that with the upgrade system. So they already had this infinite power progression system where you can upgrade your gear as high as you want. It costs a lot of platinum to do so, and if you fail and it resets, you have to start over, right? Like, it's this perfect treadmill for whales to continue to spend on for as long as they care to. And for whatever reason, the devs have decided that's not enough, and we need this 18,000 hour grind just for one system. So just for the incrustation system. That's not counting the time it takes you to level up to 140, to acquire all the gear, to acquire all the drifts, to level up all your drifts, to upgrade your gear. This is just for the incrustation. Obviously during that 18,000 hours, you're probably gonna, get all of your Psycho XP and all that too. But, there's gonna be a period of time before that where you're, too weak to be doing the most efficient grinds. So you're not really getting shards. So you're spending time just leveling and trying to get gear, and that does not contribute to those 18,000 hours, right? So it's add another like 1 to 5,000 hours on top of that, depending on how you're playing, what events you catch, how efficient you are, all that stuff. But The point being, this is ridiculously grindy, and it doesn't need it. And what's worse is I don't know why the devs are lying, because after the first event, they basically said, we didn't expect the event to be this good. It's too good, so we need to nerf it for the next time it happens, which is this one. What do you mean you didn't know it was going to be that good? Like, they designed the event. When they set the drop rate for all the reds, when they set the levels of reds they're dropping, and when they set the difficulty of the mobs that drop those reds, they didn't use ChatGPT to pick the numbers. This isn't some randomized process. They would have come up with the numbers knowing exactly how many shards they're worth, and pretty much exactly how much the top players were going to get from it, or even how much the average players are going to get from it. Because and this is something the Polish players have complained about a lot, there's a lot of devs who are active endgame players. Very strong endgame, very active endgame players. And, it seems that they're using their dev privileges to use, have information that players don't and exploit that information to their benefit, as well as making choices in designing the game that benefit them, specifically around the class balance of barbarians and voodoos. But the point being is there's experienced enough devs on the team, like experienced enough with how strong players are, that they would have known exactly how much players would have gone from the event, right? Like, they knew how fast they'd kill the mobs, they knew what the drop rates were of everything, they knew what the levels that were dropping were. They knew how many shards people were going to get from this. It's insane that they would lie to us, say that they didn't expect it to be this good, and then nerf the event. Like, they designed it to be that good. It was supposed to be that good. They knew exactly how good it would be, and it's insulting that they think they can just lie about it and then nerf the event after. For what? Like, I don't know what they're doing. And the idea that it should take you 18,000 hours to gold 3 all your gear, and that this is something that only the best, most insanely hardcore players should do, that's bogus as well. Like, come on. It's just whale bait. It's unnecessary whale bait, because you already have that in the form of the infinite upgrade system, which you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on, no problem. Like, why do they need more? And, all it's going to do is make people want to quit, because the problem is gold 3 gear is really impactful. The higher you encrust your gear, the more valuable it is. So the bonuses you get from the gold levels are way better than the bonuses you get from the bronze or silver levels. So you can't just like stop at silver 3 and be like, oh yeah, this is good enough. No, you're gonna be dramatically weaker than you would be if you were to take it to gold levels. Like, game-changingly weaker, right? Like, it's the difference between being able to do some of the most efficient content in the game versus not being able to do it, right? Especially for certain classes like Fire Mage, right? Like, you look at Fire Mage, they benefit so much from stats, and their damage is so low compared to Barbs right now. Like, if you look at Sidraga, the very best Fire Mages in the game are doing, maybe 6,000 damage without Firevallen on, or maybe that's with Firevallen, but something like that. And Barbs are doing twice as much damage. So if you want to be a Fire Mage that does any sort of relevant damage compared to your competitor DPS, you need as many stats as you can get. And that means you need to gold 3 your gear, because not only does gold 3 give you more stats, just base, but it also it gives you a huge upgrade enhancement. So, and that's another thing Fire Mage needs. Like, you need massive upgrades, right? Like plus 10 at a minimum. You know, if you want to be remotely competitive on a Polish server, plus 12. And if you actually want to be competitive with Barbs or one of the best Fire Mages, you're going to need plus 15 or better, right? And if you don't have the 2x upgrade enhancement from Gold 3, you're leaving so many stats on the table when your upgrades get that high. So, yeah, the thing is, the devs can say that Gold 3 is only for the most hardcore, dedicated of players, but every player is going to look at the benefits of Gold 3 and be like, this is incredible. Plus the capacity increases, right? Like, the 4 capacity you get from Gold 3, like, that's 2 more than what you get from Gold 2. It completely changes your build. It allows you to slot in drifts that you couldn't otherwise. It allows you to get dramatically more powerful from being able to fit more stuff in. It really just opens up a whole new world of character design, and it would feel really bad as a player to stop at anything less than that, and, you know, just accept that, yeah, if I Gold 3'd everything, I would be able to fit all the drifts I want, but I'm just gonna stop at Gold 1 and have some Magni drifts instead. Like, that feels terrible. So yeah, maybe Gold 3 is only for the most hardcore players and the biggest of whales, but doing it that way is gonna cause players to quit, because no one wants to feel like, you know, something that means so much is unattainable, right? It would be like if, you know, it'd be like if you could never get your epic, right? Like, if epics were untradeable and people were faced with the prospect of, you know, just having to farm 500,000 bosses until they finally drop their own epic, right? Like, people would quit, right? We need to have the ability to obtain what we need in the game to feel strong, and the incrustation system just does not allow that unless you're whaling. And there was no need to nerf the event, because even if you accept the premise that it should take an insanely long time to Gold 3 your gear, the event really didn't change that, right? Like, even if you got 60,000 shards as, you know, a very top Polish player, that's still 1/12 of what you need at best, right? That's assuming you have no swaps, you don't have any durability upgrades, you only have 12 items to encrust ever, right? 1/12 at best. For the very top players, the players who have probably spent tens of thousands of dollars on the game, played it 12 hours a day for the past 2 years, right? Like, throw us a bone, White Moon. Like, how much of our lives should we dedicate to this game? It's absurd. It's genuinely absurd, and I'm sorry to just go on this rant like this. I'm posting it as a separate video, so you can ignore it and not have it taint the spider grinding series. Hopefully I haven't spoiled anything from spider grinding here, but yeah, I'm very displeased with what the devs are doing lately. I think the nerfs to the events are very poorly done. They don't address the actual problems, and I think they're lying about the event being too good and being unexpected. I think it's insane. Yeah, so the event was a big frustration. I also think in general they're just not really thinking through their decisions, right? Like, the whole event nerfs and the kill count limit, those make no sense. It doesn't feel like they're thinking about their choices at all. The idea that the game should take 18,000+ hours to, you know, complete is also an absurd thing. Like, they know the numbers. They've acknowledged the 18,000 hours, and they think it's fine. What are they doing? Like, come on, what are they doing? I don't know. Yeah, I just genuinely don't know what's going through their heads. You know, even some of the older choices, like the drift system. Honestly, the drift system is a big problem, because what the drift system does is it takes away the ability to create unique items. So beforehand, you'd have some interesting choices, like, do I want to use Arhots, which have more defensive stats and defensive drifts, or psycho properties, Or do I want to use sufferers, which have, less stats, but the stats they do have are more offensive, and it also has offensive psycho properties. So your barb might use sufferers, but your knight might use arhats. Debuffers might have both as different swaps, right? It gave interesting item variety to the game. Now, everybody uses arhats because it's just more stats, more res, more drift capacity. Makes no sense to use sufferers. And that is the case for every item in the game. Players will always just use whatever the highest tier item is, because that is what's going to give them the most stats, the most capacity, the most strength. So items are super boring. There's a very limited amount of items that devs can add to the game now, and the only way they can add more is by continually power creeping the game, right? Like, once they have 12 tier 12 items, they're going to have to add tier 13 items. There's no other way to really differentiate items. So that was a poor choice. I don't really blame them too much for that choice, because I think the players didn't really anticipate it either. I think most people are just happy to have more flexibility, but looking back on it now, it was a really poor choice. The incrustation system as well, I think, is really poorly done, partially because it makes the game essentially trivial. You get so many stats, and this compounds with the drift system too, right? Like, it didn't seem that bad when it's like, oh wow, we can build more crit, that's great, we have so little crit right now. But when you can suddenly go from having 10% crit to 60% crit, you don't really understand the impact that's going to have until the server progresses to the point where you're seeing people who become that strong, and you see what a joke they make of content. So stuff that used to be hard is now trivial, and instead of it being, trying to play well so that you can complete the content and have a good success rate, it's have insanely strong drifts and incrustations so you can do this content as fast as possible, even if your party plays garbage. Just have a strong DPS who carries everybody. And it's only about, trying to do it as fast as possible. Like, success rate doesn't matter anymore, skill doesn't matter anymore, it's just how fast can you do it, which is a very different game from before. And it also makes balancing a little weird, because we're running into these situations where, when it comes to an event, right, like the DPS are just vastly stronger than the knights, because they just have better damage skills. Also, like the debuffer situation has gotten really weird, because Sheeds, they hit max debuff cap with front kick, and then they can just do damage. Plus they do pierce damage, plus they can put elemental damage in their epic V2, so they're doing insane amounts of damage with insane amounts of hit chance. And then Voodoos, they get 50% mental hit chance from Dementia, plus extra damage to their attacks, plus they attack at mental, plus their damage type is pierce and mental, so they're doing a lot of damage too. And then you have archers. Archers, instead of needing to hit 1 debuff, they have to hit 2 debuffs. And that gives them the same hit chance as Voodoo with 1 debuff, and less hit chance than Sheed with 1 debuff. And even if they hit both of their debuffs, well, it still doesn't increase their damage. They need to cast another buff to do that. So they're wasting 3 actions to get their maximum hit chance and damage. Well, Voodoos and Sheeds are using 1 action. And then they're just doing pierce damage. Whereas Sheed is doing pierce plus elemental, and Voodoo is doing pierce plus mental. And Voodoo is also attacking before them. And Voodoo's penetrating protection, Voodoo's penetrating shield block, Voodoo's penetrating Farads, Voodoo's penetrating homes. Archer penetrates none of those, doesn't have as much damage as Sheed or Voodoo. Yeah, it wasn't such a problem before, when players were all weaker and stuff, but it's become a really big problem as players have gotten stronger. It's just the difference between classes has gotten a lot bigger, and And it's also partially because of the gear choices, right? Like the drift system means that DPS can focus really hard on all those DPS drifts, but supports and debuffers need to build some more defensive drifts so they can survive. They don't have prot. Well, that means that they're not as strong offensively. Whereas before, they would have their sufferers swapped, right? So Archer would put sufferers on if they want to do damage, and then they'd be doing pretty similar damage to DPS, honestly. A bit less, right? Like, of course, debuffers and supports are going to do less damage than DPS, but it would be a lot closer than it is now. But yeah, I think the whole, the incrustation system was a big miss. Locking so much power behind such a long grind it's absurd. They really should have done something more like, if they wanted to keep that big grind, if they want to say, yeah, Gold 3 is going to take you an insane amount of time, 200,000 tit runs at 18,000 hours, they could do that, but like, make it less heavily weighted, right? So the big things that you get from the gold levels are you get massive amounts of stats, massive amounts of upgrade enhancement, and massive amounts of capacity. So all three of those things are invaluable, and they're locked behind this massive shard wall, right? That makes it completely inaccessible to most players unless they're whaling. And the better approach would have probably been to do something like have all the stats come from the bronze levels, right? Make them very accessible. Have all the, maybe the orb enhancement and the capacity increases come from the silver levels, right? That makes the capacity. It's a bit of a grind to get like silver 3, but it's not absurd, right? Like, I think any player can do that in a couple of years. No problem. And then put the put the drift enhancement behind the gold levels, right? So the 15% drift enhancement at gold 3, that's fine, right? Like, it's not completely game breaking. It's a nice bonus. It'd still make going for gold 3 worthwhile. But if you don't get that, it doesn't feel like your build is entirely worthless. It doesn't feel like you're missing out on game-changing amounts of stats and a completely different drift build, right? It's just a bit of a bonus. And I think they also need to reduce the upgrade enhancement you get, because it's totally fine for upgrades to be nice and important and a good infinite treadmill for whales and stuff. But when that's doubled, right? When all the upgrades you have are doubled in value, suddenly upgrades become way more important. And suddenly instead of having +8 instead of +15, suddenly it's not, I'm a fair bit weaker, but we can still do the same content. Now it's, I'm actually like half as strong as this person, if not less, and they can do things that I will never be able to do. And, upgrading, it's a huge pain, it's a huge expense. I think you should get value out of it. But I think you should be able to enjoy the game and feel strong without, having to go to those absurd lengths. Whales will still spend money on upgrades even if they're not multiplied by 2. Whales will still spend money on shards even if you don't lock all of the benefits of incrustation behind gold levels. Sorry, this video has dragged on way too much, and I thought I was gonna end it a while ago, but I got a little distracted by the whole ideas of all these systems they've implemented and how they interact with the length of the grind in the game and the expense it takes to reach that level and how players feel about being faced with such a grind or such an expense. I think the choices the devs are making are mistakes, and I think they're setting themselves up to destroy their player base by creating such a impossible wall, gatekeeping the feelings of, power that you want in an MMO, right? Like, if you're playing an MMO, you're going to want to progress your character, get stronger, and feel powerful. Sure, people who play more, spend more, are going to get more powerful faster. But you should still feel like you're in the same realm, the same ballpark, right? If you play 12 hours a day for 2 years, you should probably feel like you've effectively maxed your character. You shouldn't have to play 12 hours a day for 2 years and also spend 30,000 USD. Right? Like, come on. The whales are still going to spend. The whales are going to want to do it without playing 12 hours a day because they actually have a job that they're, going to and making the money that they then spend on the game. And they don't care if they're 10 times as strong as other people, 2 times as strong, or 10% stronger, right? Like, if you're a whale, you just want to be as strong as possible, as fast as possible. You just want to, did Chronoc just steal my pack? This piece of shit. Yeah, like, whales just want to be stronger. They don't really care how much stronger. And the thing is, the whales need players to play with. There's no point being 20 times as strong as people if that means that you can't find parties to run stuff with, or, you find a party to run stuff with. But it feels terrible because you're like, I really wish I was in a party full of whales where we were all as strong as me instead of playing with all these losers, right? Like, the thing about whales is they want to play with non-whales so that they can feel strong. But they don't want it to be terrible playing with the non-whales. They don't want there to be a huge power imbalance. They want to just be stronger than them. They want to impress them. They want to be desired by the non-whales to run with. You don't need to make them, yeah, you don't need to make whaling worth 18,000 plus hours. It's unnecessary. It's just poor game design. I think it's short-sighted. They're just looking at how many shards can they sell right now to the whales, and they're not thinking about how many whales are actually going to keep playing the game. How many whales are going to think the game is fun enough to push for those plus 15s? How many players are going to think the game is worth playing for 18,000 hours? And I think when they start thinking about those things, they're going to change the game dramatically. And if they don't start thinking about those things, then there's not going to be a lot of players left.